live A to Z Sports and 104.5 The Zone. Instant reaction on all 104.5 The Zone and A to Z Sports streaming platforms. I am Lucas Panzica. I am joined by Alex Daugherty, A to Z Sports Predators beat writer, as the Preds drop Game 1 to the Carolina Hurricanes on the road, 5-2 in the Stanley Cup Playoffs. Having some slight connectivity issues with Alex, but as soon as he hops on here, we'll get him in and get his takeaways for this matchup. As Nashville hangs with the Hurricanes through the first two periods, was 1-1, tied up again 2-2. Eric Howla with the equalizer, and Carolina pulls away late, two late goals in the third to win it 5-2. So the Preds, after taking two in the last two regular season games against Carolina, walk out 0-1 in the 7-game series in the first round. So as we wait on Alex to get involved here, we want to hear from you. Hit us in the chat, comments, questions, concerns on the Preds loss in Game 1, 5-2, the final score. Jamie McFerrin says they were slow all night, showed no desire to want to be out on the ice. Going to be a short series if they continue playing like this. Look, that was a big focal point around the Preds going in, that X factor, the physicality that they could possibly outmatch Carolina with. That wasn't quite there later in the second and third periods, mostly because I thought Carolina brought the heat right along with the Preds. 53-46, the Hurricanes actually out-hit the Preds throughout that matchup. Preds will come back harder than ever, says Jordan Wade. They're probably going to have to take Game 2 in Carolina if they want to stay in this series. I don't see the Preds going 0-2 in the first two games and then finding a way out of this 7-game series. But going down 0-2 before coming back to Nashville is going to be, I think, too tall a mountain to climb. Preds are going to have to take Game 2 on Wednesday, I think, if they want to stay in this series. So hit us in the chat. Karen O'Keefe says Preds ran out of gas in the third. Karen, I completely agree with you. It was so much for swallowing the whistle in the postseason. That's something Alex talked about a lot in terms of one reason why Eeli Tolvanen was not in the lineup, a guy that has been most effective on the power play all season, 6 of his 11 goals in the regular season on special teams. Probably the number one reason why John Hines kept Eeli Tolvanen out of the lineup was because of his effectiveness or lack thereof in 5-on-5 play, which the Preds need to have more of if they want to run with the Hurricanes in this series. Caleb Gray says power play was as bad as I have seen it all season, which is saying a lot since they were already one of the worst power play teams in the NHL. Caleb, you're right. The power play, the penalty kill has gone like this for the Preds through the back half of the season, while the actual power play hasn't improved enough for this team to be competitive in the postseason. Too many penalties for the Preds to stay in this game in a 5-2 final as they drop Game 1 at the Carolina Hurricanes. And seeing if Alex Daugherty is with us here. Alex, we can see you. I don't know if we can hear you. Can you hear me? No, I cannot hear you. All right, as Alex tries to get it figured out, he's going to have to bolt here pretty soon to head to media and coaches, players and coaches media availability after the game. Karen O'Keefe, thanks for coming on after the game. Thank you, Karen, for hanging out in the chat. Whatever you have for us, questions, comments, concerns about the Preds, potential lineup changes moving into Game 2. If we can get Alex's connection figured out, we'll get his take on it. I know he was steadfast all day saying he thought that it was a good decision not to include Eeli Tolvanen in the lineup, and I agreed with him going into the game, given how some of these other playoff games in the Stanley Cup playoffs have gone over the course of the weekend. You haven't seen a lot of penalties called. I mean, you think about the Lightning Panthers game on Sunday night, a 5-4 matchup where whistles were being swallowed, hard hits, and nothing was really being called. They were letting them play it out. That wasn't quite the case here in the Preds Game 1 against Carolina. But Alex, now we've lost video. He's got to run, head out to player and coaches media availability. So we will try this again. Will Bowling will join me for post-game reaction coming up here in just a second. You heard from him in the pregame with Alex going into this Game 1 matchup as the Preds fall 5-2. We are live on 104.5 The Zone, Twitter and Twitch, A to Z Sports, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Appreciate you staying with us as we try to nail down what went wrong for the Preds here in Game 1. Will Bowling on his way in to help out with the post-game reaction. But we do want to keep hearing from you. Bradley Wolf says, we looked outmatched straight up. Bradley, you're right. But look, going in, nobody on the planet would have told you that the Predators were a better hockey team than the Carolina Hurricanes. That was evident, especially about midway through the second period and on. Carolina looked far and away the better team. The Preds cannot skate with the Carolina Hurricanes. They cannot match the speed and offensive production of the Carolina Hurricanes, and they're going to need UC Saros to steal away a couple games in this series. That didn't quite happen here in Game 1. Justin Newman says Tolve enhances the offense, and especially on the power play. And you're right. Look, hindsight's 20/20. Eeli Tolvanen is by far the biggest spark this team has on the power play. As Will Bowling joins me now in the Game 1 post-game reaction. Will, appreciate
What's up?
you in.
Can you hear me? You got me.
I can hear you loud and clear.
First time for all of us, man.
He's doing post-game stuff with the media.
Yeah.
We'll try to get him figured out for the pregame in Game 2. But, Will, we've kind of been discussing it with the chat, with viewers coming in on all of our platforms, 104.5 The Zone on Twitter and Twitch, A to Z Sports on YouTube and Facebook. Give me your number one takeaway from Game 1 here.
Yeah, I think Alex Daugherty said it on Twitter, so I'll basically take the words from his fingertips that he probably was about to say on this show. It's not often that you see two lineup changes in Game 1 of a 7-game possibly series make that big of an impact in Game 1. It's also not every day that both of them you got wrong. Eric Goodbranson gets walked by on the Hurricanes' game-winning goal, the third goal, at the beginning of the third period. He didn't look good at all for the Nashville Predators. Matt Benning was another guy who possibly could have come in the third pairing. And look, Eeli Tolvanen, this team missed Eeli Tolvanen on the power play. You know, I get it that Eeli Tolvanen he wasn't the same guy when he came back from injury, right? Colton Sissons had more 5-on-5 goals than him. It's an even strength series, right? This Nashville team needs guys that are going to be physical. But I think Nashville's decision to try to match speed with physicality was the wrong one. Nashville needed more skill. They needed more speed. They were clearly outmatched in both of those categories. And at the end of the day, it's a Carolina team that probably could have won by more than they did. Nashville really didn't make Nedeljkovic work. It could have been worse for me, Lucas, than even 5-2.
Yeah, but, the issue with that going in, though, we talked about this ad nauseum going into this series, that the Preds can't match the Hurricanes when it comes to speed, when it comes to skill and offensive output. They're going to have to outmatch them with their physicality, with their goaltending and their defending. They did not do that. I mentioned it right off the top. Carolina out-hit the Predators 53-46 tonight. They brought it. Carolina knew what was coming from the Preds, from those last two regular season matchups. They brought it right out the gate, I thought. Game kind of evened out a little bit throughout the first period, 2-2, about midway through the second. But then just the quality of the Hurricanes, it just took over. It was so evident. Sebastian Aho, watching him glide down the ice into the forecheck is a sight to see. He's one of the best centers in this league. And look, they just looked like the better team. It looked like it did at times throughout the regular season when the Preds went 0-6 against the Hurricanes before finally beating them in one of those last two regular season games. They looked like they didn't quite belong on the ice with them. And that's okay. It's only Game 1. Things can change. The lineup will change. I expect to see Eeli Tolvanen back in the fold on Wednesday. I expect to see, I don't know how they're going to shift around the Herd line. They kind of broke it up a little bit with Tanner Jeannot joining Matt Duchene. And listen, I was really fascinated, too, to get Alex Daugherty's take. He had some connectivity issues, had to drop out to go to media availability. Was really fascinated to hear his take on how Matt Duchene played, because he gets that point. He gets the assist on that second goal for Erik Haula, but overall, I think a disappointing night for Matt Duchene on the third line.
Yeah, at one point he tweeted out as well that Matt Duchene was last in even strength ice time tonight.
Yeah,
we said on the pregame show before we came on right here on Zone TV and on the A to Z Sports Facebook and YouTube pages as well that playoff Matt Duchene has been a thing. I mean, when he was in Columbus, playoff Matt Duchene was very much a thing. He's been much better in the postseason than he has recently in his career in the regular season. This was not the playoff Matt Duchene we were promised. Can we get a return and get playoff Colin Wilson back on the ice is what I'm asking after this first game.
Look, moving forward, we're going to see a lot of what we saw, I think, in Game 1 in terms of the onslaught that the Hurricanes are going to bring. I think a perfect example of this is in the second period when the Preds didn't register one shot for nearly the first half of that second period, and then put up 5 of the next 6 shots. A little mini flurry that included that Haula goal that tied it up at 2-2. And then they go quiet again to close out the second period, never really found it again in the third. This team's ability to just hang in there when the offense is not coming is one thing that can keep them in this series. Obviously, that comes from UC Saros, but also the play of defensemen like Matthias Ekholm, who I thought, despite the scoreline, had a great game tonight. I thought Eric Goodbranson was good at times. But this team's ability to hang in there when things are not going their way offensively, which is going to happen a lot against the Hurricanes, is going to have to keep them in this series. It was there in flashes in the second period, but again, just the quality of Carolina taking over in the third. The Preds are going to have to find a way to offset that moving forward. And, Will, I just don't know that it's try to match them in terms of the skill and the speed. I just don't know that the Preds have that. That doesn't mean you can't make changes. Like I said, I think Eeli Tolvanen will be back in the lineup. It would be just the Preds' luck that Eeli Tolvanen comes back in, officials swallow their whistles, and there's like 1 or 2 power plays on Wednesday. But look, they could have used him here today, 0 for 3 on the power play. But would that have changed the scoreline? I mean, would that have been a different result from 5-2?
I mean, look, is it worth it to have a goal on the ice? Even though you might be giving up a little bit on the forecheck? I don't know if not having Eeli Tolvanen in the lineup is going to cost you a goal when Eeli Tolvanen could very easily score you a goal. I mean, we're both soccer guys. This is a soccer conversation you have all the time, right?
Yeah.
If a center forward scores a goal and doesn't do any work, well, does it really matter? He scored a goal, right? I mean, we have this conversation. We'll probably have it tomorrow night on the Nashville Soccer Show at 9 o'clock on 104.5 The Zone.
Oh, that's a great plug.
I would rather have in a playoff series, mask your weakness, right? Don't try to match up too much with the other team. You can't match up with this Carolina team. I think you as the Preds, you've got to match up with your own weaknesses more than you're matching up with Carolina's strengths. Because let's face it, Carolina, if they play well enough, if they get good goaltending, if they don't give the Predators breaks in special teams, Carolina's going to win the series. I think the Predators have to accept that and say, all right, how do we put the best version of ourselves on the ice, independent of what the Carolina Hurricanes are doing? I don't think Nashville did that tonight. I think we'll see a closer version of that on Wednesday in Carolina for Game 2.
James Tyson says, physicality is the way to go. They did not play that way for a full 60. The Canes' top players were affected in the first and some second period.
That's fair.
I would agree with you, James. But look, like I said, the Canes brought it. The Canes brought it on the boards. They out-hit the Predators tonight. The Canes kind of took the Preds' strength and used them against them in a way that I think the Preds are capable of doing when you flip it around in terms of the Hurricane strength and turning that around on them. I just don't see that. Caleb Gray says Carolina is just a bigger team. They're literally Iceland versus Team USA and Mighty Ducks too. They're just bigger and stronger. Caleb, I don't know that I would go that far. They're certainly much more skilled and faster, but in terms of bigger and stronger, that is the one thing the Preds have in their arsenal that is hard for other teams to outmatch them with, and that's exactly what Carolina did today. And when that happens, Will, I don't see the Preds being able to pull out a game.
No, I don't either. And the other thing we said in our pregame show right here as well before the game, you kind of needed UC Saros to play at a Conn Smythe Vezina level to have a shot. And honestly, the work is still not totally done in Carolina, obviously. You come away from there with a split, and you're feeling pretty good about where you are. UC Saros, I don't think he is at fault for this loss whatsoever. I think the only goal may be where you shake your head. The second one, it's a nice move by Stahl, but UC Saros has got to close down that tight angle on Stahl's goal to make it 2-1 in the second period for Carolina. And then from there, the fourth goal, a little bit soft for UC Saros. But look, we can't be having the conversation of even a little bit soft, right? This has to be UC Saros standing on his head just for the Predators to get past Carolina. That's what it took for the Preds to get to a final in 2017. That's the expectation for just winning this series. So we can't be having any kinds of questions about UC Saros at this point. And Lucas, this is a career-defining series for UC Saros. His contract is up at the end of this offseason. Yeah, you can do a lot of good. You can be a Vezina finalist and carry your team to the playoffs. But I don't think the Preds are going to be willing to give him a multi-year extension if this team can't get out of the first round. Because let's face it, with the talent this team has, I know there's a lot of bad contracts and guys like Matt Duchene we've already mentioned who aren't performing. It's going to fall a lot on the goaltender, like it or not, fair or unfair, to continue carrying this team the way it has in the regular season. I don't think it's completely fair. It's just the reality of where the Preds are from a numbers standpoint, where they sit right now.
Yeah, not the best day for UC Saros. And when we say not the best day, it means he didn't stand on this, keep this team in the game where they absolutely did not deserve to be in the game. And that's a lot of what he did throughout the regular season. That's the standard that he has set himself now going into the postseason, and it's on his shoulders. I mean, whether we like it or not, it is on UC Saros' shoulders to help the Preds out of the first round if they're going to pull off the upset. You do hate to see the Nino Niederreiter goal that I believe made it 3-2 that gave the Canes the lead that they did not relinquish after what was an incredible save by Saros. Kind of sequence on the follow-up that gave the Canes the lead and gave them permanently. Bradley Wolf said, you could tell we had not played in a few days. We gave up some easy goals right in front of net. Daniel Pope, Preds need more from the 2 through 4 lines like we have seen in the regular season. If the lower lines don't step up, we are out. Your thoughts on the Herd line, Will? A little bit of a shakeup with Tanner Jeannot stepping up one and joining Matt Duchene on that third line. They just didn't quite set the tone like we've seen them do a lot this season, but I wonder if that line will kind of be restored going into game 2.
Could be. I thought that line kind of lost a little bit of juice after the opening period. You saw a lot of Tanner Jeannot hits that kind of caught your eye in those first 20 minutes. I thought that group was good. Matthew Olivier was everywhere. Is Matthew Olivier good enough to be in a playoff series right now? I don't know. I mean, I think the Predators could use more skill. I think they almost overcorrected to trying to be too physical and then couldn't sustain that level of energy and that level of physicality from the first period to the third period. That's what makes this loss so tough for me, Lucas, is the fact that you've got the Canes 2-2 after 2. This was your chance to steal one on the road. That line, it set the tone early. You get the first goal. You're checking all the boxes of what you needed to happen early on in this game, right? The Herd line was hitting. Forsberg just dangles everybody and somehow finds the back of the net. And then to still lose despite the energy that line gave you, and despite what Philip Forsberg did, despite UC Saros' save that comes right before the third goal, it felt like this was the night for the stars to align and for the Nashville to steal one. Makes me worried that now you might see Carolina come out guns a-blazing. They're going to match the kind of energy the Preds had in the first period when they come out on Wednesday night. This, to me, is the kind of loss that could carry over into game number 2 if you're the Nashville Predators. We're going to learn a lot, Lucas, about this series in the first period of game number 2. You usually see one blowout per series, right? If I'm putting money on what that blowout is, it's this next one. Carolina's got all the momentum the way they finished off game number 1. Nashville needs a big effort. They need at least a lead at the end of the first period of game 2 to feel good about their chances to bounce back.
Yeah, you felt this game kind of slipping away there in the second period. 5 shots on goal the entirety of the second period. The Preds are outshot on the day as I try to pull up the box score in the NHL app crashes on me, but they're outshot by a significant margin on the day, and it was 38-24. I mean, look, and two losses to end the regular season, or 2 wins rather, to end the regular season against the Hurricanes. It's a tough ask for the division winners going on the road and to pick up a third straight win against them to kick off a playoff series. But this second game is going to be so critical that I think if the Preds want to take this thing to 6 or 7, just give themselves a chance. You have to win on Wednesday. Going back to Nashville, down 2-0 in the series, no, the Preds have the firepower to combat that and come back from a 2-game deficit. I think they've got to keep it a 1-game deficit at all times if they want to have a chance here and just be in striking distance.
Yeah, the stat I'm sure everybody's already seen as well. The Preds are 0-11 in playoff series when they lose game 1. It's not a good omen for this team that has been historically very bad when they get behind in a series. That 2017 team never trailed in a series until the Stanley Cup final when they lost game 1 of the Pittsburgh Penguins. But at the beginning of that run, they won game 1 in every single series against Chicago, against St. Louis, against Anaheim, and they went on the road to do it all 3 times. The comparisons between this team and 2017, it's not the same juice. It's not the same kind of vibe, pun intended, with this team as opposed to that one. But, Lucas, the hope I still have in this team, there's not much. One hope that I have, this team won 11 of its last 14 inside Bridgestone Arena in 2021. I don't think this series is over by any means at 2-0, but in order to feel good about your chances, you obviously have to win one on the road, right, in order to win this series at this point. When Wednesday is as close to a must-win game, I think, as you can get without it being an elimination game. It's going to feel more like 3-0 if you get down. The way this team skates, the way they have just this phenomenal speed and the skill of their power play and their special teams units. It's also disappointing that we're talking about a Preds penalty kill that was excellent tonight. Excellent. Was really, really good. Yes, at keeping Caroina. That is not going to continue. Preds cannot sustain that kind of penalty kill against this really good Caroina power play.
Recapping the Preds' 5-2 loss in Game 1 of the first round of the Stanley Cup Playoffs at the Carolina Hurricanes. Will Bowling with myself, Lucas Panzica, on 104.5 The Zone and A to Z Sports streaming platforms. Join us in the chat if you're just tuning in. We'll likely be wrapping up here in the next couple minutes. The game on Wednesday. Just one last look at the final numbers as they're kind of official and updated here. I'm not just kind of reading them toward the end of the game when I fired this thing up. 38 shots on goal to the Predators' 24. Advantage Carolina. Face-off percentage, Carolina 51.4%, Predators 48.6%. Nobody successful on the power play. A combined 0 for 8. Carolina 0 for 5. Predators 0 for 3. And Carolina out-hitting Nashville 56-49. Tied on blocks 13-13. And the most glaring deficiency in that second period where the Preds are outshot 12-5 and just could never regain that offensive consistency, just couldn't spend enough time in the Carolina zone to make an impact and sort of try and crawl their way back into the game. Bradley Wolf says, am I wrong, or did even Yossi look a little flat-footed? Yossi had a couple of moments throughout that game. There was one where he kind of fanned one almost during a Preds power play, creeping up the neutral zone and almost just whiffed on a pass and had to sort of come back and reset in the defensive zone. Everybody come back based about 1 second clock. Nobody was great tonight for the Predators. I thought Matthias Ekholm did have a very good game. Eric Goodbranson impressed me from time to time. I thought the defensemen, from what they were asked to do, had a solid outing. UC Saros was slightly above average, but the Preds need him to be way more than that to stay in this series. Daniel Pope penalty kill was clicking, but when we go on the man advantage, we have to score point blank. Tolvanen was not a factor where I thought he might contribute in the man advantage minutes. Right, so Tolvanen does not play. Will, as we kind of wrap things up here in our final takeaways, do you expect to see Eeli Tolvanen starting in that first line on Wednesday? And if you do, who sits? Is Victor Arvidsson? Does he have to take a step back after coming back from injury? What do you think?
So based on this quote from John Hines, I don't know if they're going to change the lineup. John Hines just now, according to Alex Daugherty on Twitter, says, we can talk about the lineup all we want, but we played hard. We played physical. John, I'm not going to lie to you, buddy. It doesn't matter how hard and physical you play if you're 0 for on the power play with your best sniper sitting not even on the bench, at home, in the hotel. He's not there, buddy. I think John Hines is probably going to be too stubborn to change his tactics this early because, look, let's be honest, it did work for the first 2 periods, but still, you can't be tied at 2 with a golden opportunity right there and still not take advantage because you're not always going to have Carolina tied after 2 periods. I don't like this mentality from John Hines. To me, that's going to point to, hey, let's save the lineup changes for when you go back home. And that's not uncommon, right? I mean, sometimes one game, coaches will see it as an outlier and you'll wait till game 3 when you get a venue change to change the lines up. But man, that is a defeatist. It's a loser mentality. That's what it is. Let's call it like it is. It's a loser mentality from John Hines. Own the loss. Don't give me about how hard and physical you played. Own the mistakes you made and either fix them or don't. I don't like this wishy-washy loser mentality after this game when you just got absolutely punked in the 3rd period.
Yeah, Alex Daugherty just tweeted a couple minutes ago, wait until Preds Twitter hears this John Hines audio, LMAO. So if that's any indication, that's not a good sign for what the reaction will be from Preds fans, which already hasn't been great. But yeah, I just saw that he also called the penalties on the Preds soft penalties, that it was not physicality run amok. Certainly physicality was not run amok among the Predators tonight. That was certainly not the case. But Matt McKay says, you got dominated, try something else. Look, you got dominated in the latter second period and the entire 3rd period by a team that is head and shoulders just better than you, that is more dynamic than you, that has proven all season they can score more than you, they are faster than you and more skilled than you are. What can you do to offset that? We thought we knew coming in what the Preds might do to offset it. They didn't live up to it. They didn't execute it tonight. John Hines can talk all he wants about not wanting to change the lineups. That doesn't mean he won't change the lineups and that we see the same lineups that we saw tonight. So we'll reserve that judgment, I guess, until Wednesday. But Will, parting thoughts, is there anything else we need to hit on before we sign off here as the Preds fall 5-2 in Game 1 at Carolina?
Yeah, the last thing from John Hines, this is coming from Alex Daugherty, reading this live here too, saying he prefaced his comments by saying that it was 2-2 going into the third period. So exactly what I just said, basically, that it worked for 2 periods. The Predators need to decide right now, is the way you played those first 2 periods sustainable to win this series? I don't think it is. The penalty kill was good tonight, but to me, that says as much about Carolina not taking advantage as it does the Nashville Predators stifling the Carolina power play. It's not a trend to me that the penalty kill is working that well until you do it for 2 consecutive games. I want to at least see Eeli Tolvanen back in this lineup. I wouldn't mind seeing Rocco Grimaldi back in this lineup. I think if you're talking about the speed and matching speed with speed between Carolina and Nashville, put in your hustle guy that, oh, by the way, was the only bright spot in the postseason a couple of years ago against Dallas and has continued to be your highest motor guy all season. I wouldn't mind seeing Rocco Grimaldi back in there as well to try to get this lineup a little bit quicker. But it's not a good start, Lucas, and they're going to need a big first period to answer this 3-goal third that Carolina had to take Game 1.
Joseph Dion says, hell, Dante needs to play too, referring to Dante Fabro, who was left out of the lineup tonight. Joseph Dion also says our power play needs work. Joseph, we certainly agree with that. Look, the penalty kill, something that was an atrocity throughout the first half of the season and has been top 10 in the league since the turnaround on that March road trip. And the way it kind of evens out, you see the Preds as a bottom 10 penalty kill team in terms of the entirety of the regular season, but that's not quite the case. We saw that tonight. The penalty kill was actually very good, 0 for 5. The Carolina Hurricanes, who were the second best team on the power play throughout the regular season. So, but again, how do the Preds offset what the Carolina Hurricanes do well? We know what the answer to that is. It's goaltending, it's physicality, and it just was not there tonight. So it will be very interesting to see what John Hines does differently on Wednesday for Game 2 of this first-round Stanley Cup Playoff Series. A 7 p.m. puck drop, probably going to be closer to 7:10, 7:15 like it was tonight. That is in Raleigh on Wednesday, coming back to Nashville on Friday in front of a Bridgestone Arena crowd. That crowd was rocking tonight. By the way, Will. By the way, apparently Canes fans really hate Erik Haula. I had no idea.
I don't really get it. He played 41 games there for one season. I don't know. There was some claim that he was throwing ice into the crowd at the end of the second period. They were booing him in the first period. Maybe he hates fans that do the wave during a playoff game. Look, Nashville fans have done a pretty good job embracing hockey and understanding the sport. I don't think that I can say the same about the Hurricanes. This is what I love, Lucas, about playoffs in the NHL. We find things to irrationally hate. We always pick one player, something about the fans. I want more hatred in sports. We've got it. We've got plenty of it to go around. We're going to do it pregame and postgame for every game in this series. Yeah,
and that was the vitriol being spit at Erik Haula from Canes fans was it took me by surprise for sure. Matt McKay says the way you played the first 2 periods still means UC has to save 36 pucks and your offense needs 4 goals. How is that sustainable? Exactly. It's a good point, but nothing the Preds have done over the last 2.5 months has been sustainable. That's what's made it so remarkable. Yeah. Matt, James Tyson says, replying to Joseph, I agree. If Hines wants physicality, Fabro is taking the body on more than ever the last half of the season. So that will be interesting to see.
He'll give you a lot of mistakes too. I mean, I don't know if this is a Dante Fabro series. He's been too costly giving up the puck, and a couple of turnovers were the difference in this game. I don't know if you can afford to put Fabro in there the way he's played.
By the way, a Game 4 start time has been set for Sunday. That is a 1:30 puck drop on Sunday afternoon. Good news for all of us Nashville SCers that plan on going to that game on Sunday night. So it will be a Music City doubleheader on Sunday with the Nashville Predators and Nashville Soccer Club playing in Nashville on the same day. A 1:30 puck drop. Yes, big day for Game 4. And we'll see where the series is at that point. Hopefully the Predators are not wrapping up the season on Sunday afternoon. We will see a 5-2 loss in Game 1 in Raleigh, North Carolina, dropping Game 1 to the Carolina Hurricanes. Will, anything you have before we finally get out of here?
Let's get ready for Wednesday. The coverage will start again at 6:45-ish, 6:40-ish when we went live today, pregame with myself and Alex Daugherty. Hopefully we can get his audio issues worked out for game number 2. We'll be live right at the final horn for game 2. But I think the winner of the first period, obviously the Preds, if they win the first period in game 2, doesn't mean they're winning the series. I think the Preds are down in the first period in game 2. They've got no shot. Yeah. This team has got to bounce back, and they've got to do it early. It sounds cliche, right? It's like saying the first possession of the second half of a football game is going to tell you everything you need to know. I think it's an apt way to describe where the Predators are at right now. You give up 3 goals, albeit one of them empty net, in the third period of game 1. You've got to bounce back, and you've got to do it really quickly. Otherwise, this might be over.
You said it. Same coverage that you got today. It will not go away for the entirety of this series and potentially moving forward on 104.5 The Zone's Twitter and Twitch page, A to Z Sports, YouTube, and Facebook Live, pre- and post-game coverage of the Nashville Predators in their 2021 Stanley Cup playoff run. They dropped game 1 at the Carolina Hurricanes 5-2. For Will Bowling, I'm Lucas Panzica, and for Alex Daugherty, who was with us pregame, wasn't able to make it happen post-game. We'll get it figured out. He will be back with his insight for game 2 and moving forward. And here I'm on 104.5 The Zone all week long. We are putting Alex to work this week.
That's right.
On 104.5 The Zone. Had him on the Buck Rising show just today, and I guarantee that is not the last you'll hear from Alex on The Zone this week. But Will, appreciate you stepping in during the post game. We'll do it again on Wednesday.